Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of churches to our executive director. Mark, always say family of churches when introducing this podcast, because that's what we aim to be. That's what historically we've enjoyed together. We want to preserve that relational way of building together as family. We've talked a lot about, over the past number of months, about church planning, about global partnership agreements and churches being adopted and brought in and that sort of thing. So potentially a lot of growth in the days ahead as a denomination, as a family of churches. What are your thoughts about the way that we build relationally and that value we have in Sovereign Grace?
Great question. Last week we talked about a walk-up song for you, and it just dawned on me. I could have teed up Sister Sledge, We Are Family. That was a big hit years ago. The Pittsburgh Pirates owned that
your
song for a period of time.
You can have
maybe
that walk-up
yeah,
song.
Exactly.
I'll stick with the Pink Floyd.
It is humbling to see the work that God is doing in Sovereign Grace by giving us these opportunities to partner with churches throughout the world, and we're planting more churches as well. And so it's an important question that if God allows us to grow, and it looks like he's going to do that, how do we maintain that value of building relationally? And that we aren't just a denomination having a book of church order, but we are truly a family of churches. And I don't have all the answers to that yet. I do know there's a commitment on behalf of our pastors to continue to find ways to build relationally. And because of that commitment is there, I think we'll find a number of ways to do that. I've got a number of ideas that I've been thinking about, but I just want to be honest. I don't know fully how to do that yet, but I believe God will give us help.
What are some of those ideas that you have?
Yeah, I think one of them is to use a platform like this, this podcast that we're doing regularly, Ben, and to talk about some family news in Sovereign Grace churches. And so let me just give you a couple of family news updates. As you know, if you live here in the States, Hurricane Ida hit New Orleans and Louisiana pretty hard, and actually the southern part of the United States. We were just talking before the podcast, we got a lot of rain from Ida last night here in our area. But we've been interacting with, I've been texting with, John's been texting with Keith Collins, and I've also been texting with Pete Shefferstein in New Orleans, Louisiana. Keith leads Lakeview Christian Center. I've also texted with Jeff Earhart, who leads Christ Community Church in Covington, Louisiana, which is what they call in the North Shore, sort of on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain. And in both cases, most of the members in those churches did evacuate before Ida. Wow. And I just think, you learn from Katrina. There's been damage to homes of members of churches. They're trying to figure out when do they come back into the city, because as of this morning, this is Thursday morning, we're recording this, there's still no power, there's not water. So you don't want to come back too early and just sort of step back into difficulty. So they were saying, could you pray for wisdom to know when to come back to our homes? It's very similar for Jeff Earhart's church, Christ Community Church. A number of folks evacuated. They're trying to figure out when to get back. Some folks that did stay have generators. I think he said he had one member of the church that had a home basically destroyed by a tree that had just sort of fallen on their house. I think they're a little closer to Lake Pontchartrain. So they've got a long road ahead, and we just reaching out to see how we could serve them, how we could pray for them. Pete Shefferstein told me that the church building at Lakeview Christian Center had some minor roof damage, and they've got a lot of cleanup to do, but it's not bad at all. So that's good news. So if who's ever listening to this podcast or reading the transcript, pray for Lakeview Christian Center, the pastors and the members of that church, and pray for Christ Community Church for Jeff and the members of that church. So that's one update. Another one is our brothers and sisters over in Australia, which would be Sovereign Grace Church of Sydney and Sovereign Grace Church Parramatta. Dave Taylor leads the Sydney church. Riley Spring leads the Parramatta church. And as you know, their approach to the coronavirus in that nation is that when there are some infections, they just lock down. So they were in lockdown for a long period of time. Then they were able to gather again as a church for I think a few months or several months, and then about a month or two ago had to go back into lockdown. And they was telling me just last week that the difficulty of being able to gather again and then not being able to gather again is really harder the second time that you have to lock down. So they're doing fine. They are persevering. They cling to Christ, but it weighs on them. It's hard for them. So again, if you're listening to this podcast, please pray for both of our churches in Australia, in Parramatta and in Sydney as well. And then, so that's another way, I think, just keeping ourselves updated on what's happening in our family of churches. Here's another one starting tonight. This is Thursday night, so guys will get this next week, and I'll be talking about a conference that's already happened. There is a regional Life Together conference that involves the churches in the Northeast region, the Mid-Atlantic region, and actually you're bringing folks, so yeah. It involves the Great Lakes region as well. Just for members of churches and the pastors of the churches to gather together at a regional event. And the focus of this is just as we gather together again, coming out of the pandemic, how do we think about corporate worship? And what are some of the ways that we can not only think about it biblically, but practice it biblically as well? And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great conference, but it gives the members of our churches a chance to be together and experience partnership in a way that our pastors do more consistently than our members do. Right. So that's, I think, another part of our future is looking to do regional type conferences that build partnership like that. So those are just some of the ways that I think we will continue to be, by God's grace, truly a family of churches.
And I think all the pastors reading this are anticipating November, where we experience that family reunion sort of vibe environment that we didn't get to have last year because the pastors conference didn't happen. So excited to build together in that way at the Council of Elders, and then also as we enjoy fellowship together. So we'll be praying for the guys down in New Orleans and the guys in Australia. They are family. They're our brothers and sisters there. And so we'll be interceding on their behalf in the days ahead. So thanks, Mark, for your encouragement, your reminders, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you here next week, Lord willing. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.